The problem with Cyril and Gwede and all those boys and Paul Mashatile, is the Treasury General, they've been taking money from everyone. They owe everyone something. So they're trapped.
Yeah.
They can't move because they owe everyone a deal. Gayton says, I never want to owe anyone anything. I want to do the right thing for the country, put the right people in power, put the right...
So we know that EFF Vice President Floyd Shivambu has accused the members of the multi-party charter as being funded by the Oppenheimers, to drive a certain narrative in South Africa. But here in this video, Rob Hersov actually argues that, the Patriotic Alliance actually rejected his money, rejected his support financially to drive, the policies of the Patriotic Alliance. Let's really understand why from this interview Rob Hersov has with Penuel the Black Pen, and I'll be back for some really interesting analysis on the Patriotic Alliance.
Because the country still has a slightly racial, unfortunate undertone. So and our majority are black in our country. So we will need a leader who is not white.
You believe
as
so?
The next step. No, I don't. I believe you should just have the best person of all. Don't care who it is.
But you understand the sensitivity.
I understand the sensitivity.
Okay.
Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to ask, we already know from the ANC the answer, but I'd like to ask the EFF, VF Plus, Patriotic Alliance, DA, blah, blah, blah. What would your cabinet look like? Give me the names of who you'd have in your cabinet, who individually, and which cabinet positions you'd get rid of, or might add. We have a cabinet like 50 ministers with DGs.
It's too big.
It's a joke.
It's too big. And most people don't even know they exist.
And we don't need DGs. If you have the proper person as a minister, you don't need a DG. We have useless people as ministers. So they sort of need a DG to do the work.
That is true. The DGs do the work.
Yeah, exactly. So you could get rid of 90% of those lunatics and have a much smaller cabinet of more focused people and better people. And I'd like to know from everyone who's standing for government who their cabinet would be. Individuals, the names.
You did my homework. So I've got a platform, Penuel the Black Pen, where I gave people homework, 5 to 10 items that affect you personally. Yeah. So that when a politician comes to you, you say, I know the country's got problems, but these are my concerns. And you did the homework. And I think it's pretty cool that you're now challenging other political parties to say, we hear you're frustrated, you want to lead the country, but do your homework. Tell us, this is who should be Minister of Police. This is who should be.
Exactly.
So that we now know if we vote for you, this is what we're going to be getting.
100%. And the DA probably could do it. I think they've actually got the names.
They've got shadow ministers.
They've got shadow ministers, yeah. So they can do it. I'm sure Action SA, if pushed, would also hand you the list. Gayton McKenzie, interesting, I asked him already, and he said, he doesn't take money from anyone, okay? He refuses to take money from me. I even looked on the...
You're going to give him money? Where do we get money? I'm going to send you my banking details.
No, for the toilets and for the pools and things like that, okay? So I had a look on the Patriotic Alliance website. There isn't a donate button.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And I asked him why not. He said, the problem with Cyril and Gwede and all those boys and Paul Mashatile, the Treasury General, they've been taking money from everyone. They owe everyone something. So they're trapped.
Yeah.
They can't move because they owe everyone a deal. Gayton says, I never want to owe anyone anything. I want to do the right thing for the country, put the right people in power, put the right people as ambassadors who do the job and not owe anything to a single person. I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
By the way, I want to say thank you because Gayton did tell us the story of your contribution to the toilets in the Karoo. If you can just mention that a little bit. I don't want to steal the shine.
I don't want to take credit.
Well, you were involved. It was a collaborative effort, but just your involvement.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? I think it's really interesting. I remember on B's News, Gayton McKenzie actually spoke about how, Rob Hersov is really a nice guy. Rob Hersov does a lot of this charity works that a lot of people do not know about. He gives huge sums of money to different causes, and he likes to be silent about that. But in terms of financial support to the PA, he actually rejected, a lot of that from Rob Hersov and other party funders because he argues that he doesn't want the Patriotic Alliance to be controlled because, as those of you who read the Bible, you know that it says that the borrower is slave to the lender. So Gayton McKenzie has this understanding that if he's being funded by any party, that funder has the capacity to control the direction of his party, and he wants to really be independent in pursuing his cardinal pillars, so which is bringing God back to South Africa, deporting all illegal foreigners, and also reintroducing the death penalty. So, but for this video, I really wanted to analyze the key points of the Patriotic Alliance manifesto. In other videos, I'll go deeper into that, and we'll try to break down and see, how Gayton McKenzie views South Africa and his direction for the future of South Africa. But the key points the Patriotic Alliance has for South Africa, the key points actually want to focus on crime reduction. It wants to focus on economic revitalization and also improved governance. So on its land reform strategy, right? Gayton McKenzie wants to focus on historical injustice and try to get a way to get back historical justice, especially in terms of land reforms and all that with the Natives Lands Act of 1913, I would believe. And then he wants to get focus on contemporary stability. Gayton McKenzie wants to also ensure that in pursuit of land reforms in South Africa, there wouldn't be any negative impacts on food security. So this has been one of the debates that has been argued, that the moment the EFF, the EFF's policy of land expropriation without compensation, in trying to do that in a way Robert Mugabe did in Zimbabwe, it would threaten food security. The PA doesn't want that. The PA wants to conduct its own land reforms, but also have a much more focus on maintaining food security in the land. Okay, the PA also wants to focus on rural jobs and also economic growth, and especially trying to fight for subsidies for state-partnered farms and skill transfer programs, in its policy. In terms of its implementation policies, the Patriotic Alliance plans to include stricter immigration policies. We know that they want to kick all the illegal foreigners out. It also wants to enforce military service for its youth. So it has spoken about how the SASSA money, the welfare money that's actually 300 rands thereabout. He wants to sort of like change that and have most of the youth serve in the military and get paid for their service in the military, rather than having to go to get welfare support in a way without contributing to the economy. So that's how Gayton McKenzie wants to focus on this whole welfare for the unemployed youth. Gayton McKenzie also wants to introduce the death penalty, because he feels that in a way this is one of the ways to curb the high crime rate in South Africa. We know that a lot of people have called South Africa the murder capital of the world, and how crime seems to have grown in South Africa. Sometimes it's beyond me, but many times I usually think that it's a reflection of the anger that's incubated in the nation, especially from the transition of the apartheid state to a democratic state at the moment. There's still an anger, there's still a cloud of anger that's still being engulfed, that's still engulfed in people's hearts, in people's minds, and so that reflects in the high crime rate. This is my own interpretation, I don't know, but you guys could share your thoughts or correct me. The PA also wants economic reforms and also significant infrastructural projects. In terms of BEE, so those Black empowerment, program introduced by the ANC at the time, the Patriotic Alliance sees it as it's actually criticizing BEE, even though it sounds like a way. The ANC argues that BEE was its own approach to approach the historical injustice that was impacted against the blacks in South Africa. Gayton McKenzie argues it criticizes BEE as being a policy that is benefiting a small elite, and I would argue that this is a small black elite within the ANC, rather than helping the larger black populace that it argues to help. No, he argues that it's actually benefiting a small elite of the ANC, and he would scrap that out. He argues that he would scrap out BEE legislation in favor of an empowerment levy for broad-based initiatives. Okay. Now, in terms of crime safety initiatives, the Patriotic Alliance wants to enforce a detailed strategy that includes tougher penalties for severe crimes, and also enhance police servicing, and also tackle corruption and gangsterism. Also, I know that Gayton McKenzie speaks about how if you kill anyone in South Africa, you would also be killed. That in that regard. And so it's kind of like, I think it will kind of like be a tit for tat policy in that regard. And also, I remember in one podcast, he argues that because he understands the underworld really well, he would go for gangsters and try to get this, what has been termed the mafia. He will be going for the mafia to eradicate them because they are one of the sources of this increased corruption in South Africa. Okay, in terms of education reform strategies, McKenzie's Patriotic Alliance wants to improve educational outcomes by addressing the quality of teaching and ensuring adequate resources for schools. McKenzie also wants to place a focus on math and science education in South Africa. And this is really reasonable. I really love this one because you see the bulk of South Africa's economy is actually gained from mining. Mining actually contributes a lot of South Africa's foreign currency. And there's this guy called Chandler Locks, right? I think he was also one of the proponents of Operation Dudula at the time. He spoke about how, South Africa's educational system is actually preparing South Africans to become slaves of professional foreigners because South Africans are not being educated to take over the mines and the major sectors of the economy. Rather, a child in Germany, for example, is being trained in mining. And then at the end of the day, they come back to control the mining activities and processes in a country that is being dominated by those resources. Meanwhile, the citizens in that country are bereft of the knowledge of mining, that kind of argument. And so McKenzie wants to focus on math and science education, and I'm sure this would drive into that whole debate on educating South Africans to take control of the resources that are actually in South Africa. So these have been some really interesting in terms of the PA's argument in social welfare programs rather than the SASSA grants now of 300 rands. McKenzie wants to support the poor, the disabled, and the elderly while also encouraging self-reliance and employment. So rather than just having a supporter giving out money like that, he also wants to encourage self-reliance, and employment. Also, in terms of energy, it has a really interesting energy policy. Patriotic Alliance advocates for liberalizing power generation and focusing on a mix of renewable energy sources. It also wants to fight for nuclear reactors, right? So I know in one video, Rob Hersov argues that South Africa's nuclear reactors are actually dormant at the moment, and that McKenzie now says that he wants to fight to bring those back to life. And then also he wants to introduce gas-fired turbines. So emphasizing solving the problem of load shedding through gas-fired turbines. So these have been some policies of the Patriotic Alliance that actually are included in its manifesto, and this is how it wants to help South Africa get back on its feet. And we know that a lot of these policies also seem to be shared by other parties in South Africa, but whichever comes to the fore, I think it would really be interesting to see how the challenges they will have to overcome to get their policies rolling. But this has been a lot of information in this video. I don't know, what do you guys think? Please share your thoughts in the comments.